Let's jump into this topic. It's a mouthful, leveraging API acceleration tech to scale a partner program. It's a lot to think about, and it's top of mind for me. So I'm Deven Ravel, and I head up technology partnerships at Reputation. We're a consumer sentiment platform that helps brands understand what they're doing well and how to be better. And part of my integration strategy and tech partner strategy is looking at technologies like this. I was previously at Vaccaro, which is in this space. In the role before this one, I white labeled Tray.io, so I've been really familiar with this space for a while. And these guys are gonna hate me for what I'm about to do next. So these are all competitors up here. And I've seen some clever icebreakers today. So for the icebreaker, you're gonna say what your role is, and then you have to pick somebody else here that you switch places with. So which competitor would you rather be at? And you're not allowed to say your own company, and you have to say why.
That's way nicer than we talked about.
I know. I had to. We'll get a little spicy with this one. So, Cristina, you're first.
Hi, my name is Cristina Flaschen. I'm the CEO and founder here at Pandium, and I think I would go with Blended Edge.
All right, Mike.
All right, I'm just glad you didn't have embarrassing photos up there, because I thought that's what you were
No.
going to surprise us with. My name is Mike Vaccaro. I run global partnerships at Tray. So Tray is we just got new messaging this morning. I was going to test it out, but I don't think I'm going to. I'm going to go with my standard spiel. Tray is a cloud-based, low-code automation platform. So think of us as basically allowing you to build integrations through our platform, either internal or external. And if I were to choose another platform to work for, I think I would go with Alloy. And
Nice.
I'll tell you why. Do you want to know why?
Yeah, so
I'll tell you why. I think what she's doing is amazing, and she hypes the hell out of me when I hear her speak. But I think they have a very clear vision on the market they're going after and really defining what they want to focus on, and I think that's really unique. So that's why.
awesome.
Is this already on? Cool. Hey, I'm Ryan, co-founder and CEO of Blended Edge. Our objective here is to solve the problem where partner and product teams struggle to get integrations out the door, and so we've got an integration platform and some other stuff we built on top of it to do that. I think I'm going to have to reciprocate and say I would work for Pandium because I like the fresh vision for integration. iPaaS has been around a little bit too long, and I think there's some interesting new things coming up to disrupt that.
Thank you very much.
You just called me old.
Facts.
This is on.
Yeah,
It is?
Yeah.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. My name is Nam Lee. I work at Vaccaro. I head our embedded business unit at Vaccaro. So Vaccaro is an automation platform as well. And my business unit works with other product companies and SaaS organizations to power their integrations. Who would I work for? This isn't recorded, right? I
think it is.
would also probably work for Alloy. Really like not just the vision, but the focus that you guys have, and you guys do the hard shit, and that's always the fun stuff to do.
Hey everyone, I'm Sara. I co-founded Alloy 2.5 years ago. Alloy is a verticalized integration and automation platform, so we focus specifically on commerce. So before Alloy, I did undergrad at Harvard, dropped out, worked at Snapchat for a bit, and had a small streetwear brand. So started Alloy kind of with the vision of building a easier to use like automation tool, but more so the innovation is in the back end of like adding integrations quickly. I much love for Tray. I actually had my answer already. Thought about it, and Nam is a great sales leader, so I would work for him.
Nice. Awesome.
I think Sara won for keeping score.
So we did the intros. We're going to talk a little bit about defining what these platforms do, defining the problem. Why are there so many acronyms, and why is it important for tech partner leaders to know this stuff? Alignment, misalignment with product, engineering, what kind of metrics you should be looking at, and then where do you go from here? Because I think there's a whole spectrum of where all of us are at when it comes to leveraging these types of technologies, and are you ready for it or not, and Maybe there's pre-work that needs to get done. So we'll jump in. Why we're here today, I love this quote from Mike. Can't build everything in-house, so just stop. So show of hands. Who in here, if you're going to be bold to share, wishes that not so many things were being built in-house? I'm also in that same boat. I think I've always been in that same boat. Show of hands, who in here is leveraging either an iPaaS or API automation or some sort of low-code technology today? Who's monetizing it? Awesome, very cool. It's cool to just see where everyone's at. So I think one of the sessions earlier with Christine Stewart and Bob and the VCs talked about investments that are being made in platforms that have interoperability, right? So what I'm finding, talking to peers in the community and in my own role, to get GSIs or agencies interested in your platform, that data has to flow bidirectionally. It has to go places and really solve business outcomes. And if you go a layer below that, it means you need to have a strong tech partner strategy. It's not just referrals. I mean, if co-selling referrals help, but being able to deliver on that integration. And you go a layer deeper than that, it's core platform architecture and product. And were you an API first company? Were you a legacy platform that's now rebuilding that? So maybe we start with that. I think, Cristina, maybe let's talk about definitions a little bit. I won't have you define iPaaS because you'll probably upset a few people here. Do you want to talk a little bit about just low-code automation and API acceleration, and why are folks coming to you? What problem are they trying to solve when they talk to Pandium?
Yeah, so I think we can sort of lump a lot of these tools together just into integration enablement generally. There's a lot of different tooling now. iPaaS is not the only thing out there to help solve this problem. And I think everyone knows the same problem, which is more integrations faster with less humans. Like that's just what everybody is looking for, and that's the foundation for all of your tech partner programs. And yeah, as mentioned, there's a lot of different ways to do that. I think that low code and workflows definitely have their place, and using code and writing integrations as a developer also has their place. So I like seeing that there are a lot of different options for different use cases depending on the needs of each individual business.
Awesome. Nam, I want to go over to you and dive a little bit deeper into what problems you're trying to solve and talk a little bit about like what does this mean? Your customers are probably wrong. What are you guys seeing? Like what makes you think this? What are you guys seeing and what challenges are you guys solving?
You know, it plays on what Christine just said, that your customers, our customers, very often want everything kind of simplified. They want one single vision, but there is room for different experiences, different levels of effort. You said to disagree with stuff. I disagree that like we have to build some stuff natively. Some integrations should absolutely be native built, right? Particularly like the work of integrations, the toughest part of it is maintaining it, is configuring it across hundreds and thousands of customers. It's not the first integration you build, that's easy, right? And so if your customers are all the same and you have one use case that can be provided across hundreds of customers, freaking build that internally. Please don't make an iPaaS do that. You're not gonna really get enough value out of it, right? You should use the platform to do the hard stuff. And so I think when I say your customers are probably wrong, it's because a lot of the product managers and product leaders that we talk to, they're like, I just want it simple. But at the end of the day, their customers don't need simplicity, right? What's the value prop of everybody's freaking platform today? Everything's customizable. Well, that makes our jobs hell, but it makes us valuable, right? And so we have to be respectful of that. We have to understand that it's a hard problem to solve for. And so your solution for it has to take that into account. I think that's kind of what I mean by there is a time and place for everything, but where we really drive and provide value is just doing the hard shit.
Yep.
My favorite end customer quote that'll come into support tickets or come into sales emails is anything that starts out with, this shouldn't impact the integration, but ...
On that note, so Mike, I'm going to have you dive into this one. Another show of hands, who here within the last, I don't know, just say 3 years, has taken on a technology partner leader role and had to make decisions or assessments on how fast you can scale your connector program to support your partnerships? Have you had to go through that exercise? And another show of hands, early stage company, let's just say like Series C and earlier, show of hands. And late stage? And was it, you can just nod, was it harder to do it at a late stage because infrastructure's, okay, so Mike, I'm sure you guys are seeing this all the time. What advice would you give to a technology partner leader who's taken a new role and being asked, go build pipeline, go co-market, go co-sell, and you need to manage how these connectors are being built? There's some initial inventory process that needs to happen. What are some of those things that you'd recommend to a tech partner leader within the first like 30 to 90 days of being in that role? Who do they talk to in the organization? How do they get their hands on the right things? Where do they start?
Yeah, I mean, number one is understanding what's available today. I'd go to product, number one. Go sit with the product team. Who has been building the integrations? What state are they in? Are they good? Are they bad? I would also talk to CS and understand where the pain points are with current customers that are using those integrations, and understand the roadmap and also what shape the API's in. I mean, I think we all suffer from that. Like any customer can come to us today and say, let's leverage an iPaaS tool, but if they don't have an API, there's really not a lot you can do. So that's where I really encourage teams to make sure that you're getting your API in shape and it's ready to go before you start this big journey, if you were to go down an iPaaS route, or just even saying, I have to get 20 integrations built by the end of the year, how am I gonna do it? You're pretty screwed if you don't have a solid API. So I think the inventory is really important, and then quickly after though, it's prioritization. You know, what is gonna move the needle? And it's looking at sales growth. Where are you losing deals because you don't have the integrations? Your competitor does, you don't. Okay, that's a really obvious place to start. Go to CS. Where are we losing business? Why are we churning? Because we still don't have the integration. We promised it 12 months ago, and product has no idea when it's even gonna be on the roadmap. You're going to lose business. So that's where you really have to balance out getting net new customers, retaining customers, and then how to go get new pipeline with net new tech partners to then generate that new business as well.
You talked about prioritization, so I'm gonna jump to Ryan. Most, like any of the platforms here, you white label an iPaaS or you use a low code, you're gonna be cranking out 100 integrations, 100 connectors a year, right? That's how that goes, right?
That's what they promise. It's
right,
on
yeah.
his website.
So Ryan, what's the reality there? And talk to me about prioritization and
Yeah. That's so. I hear the we need 100 by the end of the year all the time, and like there are people who are capable of doing that. But the advice I like to give is think about momentum, not speed, because if you just without building the process of figuring out how to do this with your product team and orienting this to the other teams in your organization to know what you're doing, if you just try to go, balls out as fast as you can, you're going to create a huge mess. And so start a little slower, but build up to that capacity to have a pace where you're doing 100 a year. And in terms of priority, I'd actually kind of second what Mike said. There's two things you have to consider. There's how hard is this going to be to build, and what's going to be the revenue impact for us. And if you plot everything on those two axes, you can put a pretty good, at least recommendation for what order you should take these things on. You see companies oftentimes put a lot of money into the wrong investment, into the wrong integrations, and underserve the ones that actually had a really big opportunity for them. And I'll plug our free app, integrationplanner.com, we just put out. It gives you the ability to do that.
I was gonna say you're breaking the rules of engagement, but it is a free app and it's not.
It's not an iPaaS, it's a free app.
We approved of this prior
I
to
know.
the panel, yeah.
You bring up some good points about the prioritization process, and I think some of the challenges that tech partner leaders face is being able to communicate that, speaking the language of product or speaking the language of engineering. And once you do that, raising that to CRO, CEO, you need buy-in from all these executives in the company. So Sara, you just raised a round recently, you guys are growing fast. How do you have that conversation? What's happening in the industry landscape with integrations and the value that you're providing to your customers?
Yeah, so I guess for context, been around for 2.5 years. Partnerships we think of as like the first, like the key to go to market, because you need to develop your soft power as a platform, whether or not you're an embedded iPaaS platform. Like you do need to develop those partnerships for distribution of your app, and then you at one point need to solidify those partnerships through some sort of product integration. So for us, like the benefit of being focused on a vertical like e-commerce is that we can actually educate the ecosystem and get people to open up APIs. So in our 2.5-year journey, we've actually gotten at least a dozen or so apps to not only create APIs, but then also adopt new standards like GraphQL. I won't go into those things, but there's plenty of examples of, say, like NetSuites and like Magentos who are on these outdated versions of APIs, but we've almost been doing like ecosystem cleanup, and as a result, our customers can benefit from not only full coverage, but really good API practices.
Keyword there, really good API practices. Really good doesn't always mean easy, and I think when we think of building tech partnerships, because we're living in this world of product-led growth and self-serve, and APIs and connectivity need to be that. Nam, I want to get your take on, should this always be easy? Is there an easy button, and is the easy button the right thing?
Man, I just had that giant rant about doing the hard shit. Yeah, of course not. At the core of this, though, in the last session, there was a good line that was like, we're supporting business processes first, right? And so we always have to remember that technology is supposed to come last. It's the people and the process that really, really matter in this. And so, there shouldn't be an easy button. Sarah's doing the Lord's work there, cleaning up e-commerce APIs. Christ, thank you. But I mean it shouldn't be easy, but it should still always get better, right?
Yeah.
It should get better and easier to interact with, but it just can't be a magic wand.
Yeah, would you say it should be easier to solve complex business problems and not just shy away from the complex business problems?
Yeah, but there's a cliff, because it should be easier because the people are getting more sophisticated, right? The application admins that we're interacting with are getting smarter and better. And so we should enable them to do it. But, my mom can't open up my garage right now, so she doesn't need to be understanding some of these pieces, right? So there is a cliff that, I think we have to be honest with ourselves. It should be easier, but, it can't be dead easy. At least for us, we do B2B. If it's a B2C, things like that, that's just not mine.
I'm going to tee up Cristina, because enterprise integrations require code, right? So I think there is that cliff. What's your perspective on that? So go for it. Go for it.
Yeah. So we have a different approach. We're not a low-code tool. We're code-driven. There's a lot of reasons for that. One of those is the flexibility that you get, being able to interact with an API sort of in its raw fashion. And I do think that a lot of the low-code, like tools, Zapier et al., can be really helpful in assessing use cases, like figuring out really high level, like how do folks want to do this, prototyping, getting kind of boots on the ground to get some usage. But what, in our experience, when you're looking at apps that are really high volume and also very critical to a business process, there needs to be an additional layer of complexity that can be challenging to implement with low code. Developers want to develop, and APIs are not always easy. And I think we all thought they were going to get more standard. 15 years ago, it was like, oh, everyone's going to become like whatever the standard protocol is. And we've seen the exact opposite of that.
Which brings up another point. I think tech partner leaders are often brought in. Sometimes we're the ones making that decision or having the idea, hey, I think we can leverage a solution like this. If we can just run through real quick. When you have these conversations and you're in an embedded sales cycle, or you're talking to teams, I want to understand, where is the most pain being felt between PS, product, engineering, CS? Cristina, why don't we start with you and just go down the line real quick?
The most pain? You mean what are those companies feeling as the most pain?
Like for a partner leader to do their own inspection within the organization to solve a problem, where do you see that usually?
Yeah, I do think that it depends on the level of adoption if you have current integrations. So if you don't have anything, the problems are going to be different than if you have a handful of things that are not working well or a lot of things that are sort of working. I do think that organizations early on underestimate how many personas are involved in an ecosystem play and technology partnerships. It's not just engineering, it's not just product. It's really almost the entire organization. And this is sort of a non-answer, but I think the pain points are going to be different depending on who you talk to.
Yeah.
But I will say that, when we talk to companies, they're typically at like a certain level of scale. And usually it's just, hey, we didn't think about a lot of this in advance when we designed this, our API or the infrastructure that we're using. And now that we're hitting that blitz scale where we're going from, 100 to 1,000, there's just all kinds of places where it's coming apart at the seams. So sort of a non-answer, but.
No, it makes sense. Anyone have like other wildly different answers or all pretty similar?
Yeah, I think a through line that we see, and we do a lot of enterprise level integrations, a lot of commerce ones, kind of like Pandium does. And I see pretty consistently that when you have to build these integrations that are somewhat reusable, but still require heavy customization per end user, the customer success or implementation or onboarding team, whatever they're calling it, tends to struggle, because not only do you have to deliver an integration that can scale and that can kind of rinse and repeat, but you have to help them develop a practice of using that as part of their project, and they typically are not equipped to handle even a boxed-in integration project, and so that can create some big messes for them.
Yeah, I would just say, and I'm going to kind of answer this a little bit differently as well, but I think about pain points and I think about other solutions. One of the things I've experienced, and I'm sure you all do too, a lot of people love to say no, especially in my organization and your organizations, the last companies I've worked for, everyone says no. And I think the challenge when it comes to integrations, and if you're doing it in-house or evaluating an iPaaS, is there's a lot of ways to execute. There's a variety of ways to execute, and you don't have to, nor should you use the same one every single time. So a lot of the sales cycles we're in, or partners that I talk to, I advise them to think about it different ways. Like, okay, yes, maybe that NetSuite integration is going to be really hard and take a while, but the Bamboo HR and something else are going to be a lot faster. Let's reprioritize those. Or maybe there's a different way to deploy that, not natively, but doing it a one-off because you have a really frustrated customer. So I think it's important to look at the landscape across your business and not use the same tool every single time, and it should be a hybrid approach. I agree with you, there are certain integrations that you should build in-house, but you shouldn't try to do everything because it's humanly impossible. There's too many integrations that are out there today. So I think a balanced hybrid approach is really important, and using the right tool for the job.
Yeah, I'll come at a slightly different angle. So like I think of the pain is high when the sales cycle is easy, right? And it just goes through, and our easiest sales cycles are ones where either PS or product engineers I didn't join this company to work on freaking integrations into the product. They want to go work on the product itself. That's what they're passionate about. So that's where I see a lot of that pain, and especially right now in the economic climate, everything's going on, and every VC selling portfolio companies go focus on your product and innovate your own product. That's really what they want to do, and the last thing they want to do is integrations, and so they're just trying to throw it over the fence.
Right. From my perspective, it's like the biggest area of opportunity is actually just having all the non-technical parts of the org think from an API-driven perspective. So, for example, like engineering puts out public API docs. That often only covers, say, like 40% of all available endpoints that a product has. And usually, like partnerships, CS, sales, they're not getting a really great rundown of all the like functions that are possible. So, take for example, if you're a subscriptions app, you should know like, oh, my subscriptions app can let other apps know when a subscription is deleted, or if it's updated, or it's renewed on the like 5th month. So if you can at least know the like breadth of functionality that your system can achieve through its APIs, you can then get creative and then understand how do I leverage my app in conjunction with the world of other apps through this iPaaS. And so I think in general, it's a huge rework, a new way of like thinking that we need to push within orgs that are considering adopting integration platforms.
And we're coming up on time, so we didn't get to talk about the metrics that you should think about before going down this. Maybe we'll do like a roundtable as a follow-on. But let's get into wrapping up. Like, what are some of the actionable things that we can take away from this? So, Sara, we'll start with you. What's the first thing that you can do when you get out of here?
Yeah, first thing is just ask your engineering team, what are all the possible things we can do with our API? Like, a lot of stuff is hidden, so you want to dig.
And then, as a tech partner leader that's growing in this space,
Yeah, I mean, partnerships, I think founders often undervalue partnerships, but partnerships is first. That's what then enables better marketing, and that's what builds pipeline for sales. So the way I see it is like kind of three waves to it, and if you can make sure that your founders hear how important partnerships is, you can get the ability to push like decisions like an iPass.
Awesome. Cristina?
Yeah, so I would say first decide if you actually want to have an ecosystem play or if this is really something that is meant to close one big deal or make one customer happy, because the requirements for really growing revenue based on these apps and partnerships is different than just sort of filling a need immediately. And I would also say, if you do plan on scaling this out, and I think everyone here probably does, I don't think anyone is here to not make more money, try to plan a little bit in advance. Again, going back to if you just make a Band-Aid, you're not really building for the future growth of your company.
Awesome. Brian?
All right, so we kind of covered my first one already. Go get cross-functional, get with your product team, get with your sales team, come up with a scoring methodology and stack rank the opportunities you have in front of you. So you're at least working from a common understanding of what's most important. Actually, Chris Formosa at Content Square, and that's a great one to look up to, talked about that. That's exactly what they do. So ask him how they're doing it.
And then this is long. Can
Yeah,
you
I'm not going to read the whole
paraphrase?
thing. And pardon the gendered name. It's Teddy Roosevelt, so it's a different time. But the man in the arena speech that he did, which in my words is basically, don't worry about all the noise. If you're the one in the ring doing the hard work, that's all that matters.
I'll go quick. My tactical one, it's okay to be reactive. Listen, right? A lot of people make assumptions, particularly kind of in our space, about what everybody needs, and if you solution based on those assumptions, you can get yourself into more trouble than you think. So listen to everybody around you, and solution on the hard stuff. My leadership piece is, look, I just want to build cool shit with my friends. So the most impact you're going to make, the most important problems you're going to solve, number one, you probably don't know what they are today. And number two, it's going to be hard. It's going to be really, really hard. So, the best thing I've done so far is surround myself with people that I can't wait to wake up and work with, and we build really cool shit together.
I mean, everyone's competitors up here, and I think just the community that's happening and what that's doing for tech partnerships, that to me is some of the coolest shit. I'm biased though, because I have a lot of time in the space. So
You're a likable guy.
I don't know. My wife doesn't say that all the time. All right, Mike.
All right, my tactical takeaway. I talked about this a little bit, but making sure you build an integration strategy that's cross-functional. Support the entire business. You have to look at every aspect of the business. If it's just siloed to net new and trying to get leads, you're missing out on a huge opportunity from a retention perspective and expansions perspective. It's much easier to grow an existing account than it is to go get a net new account. So really look at it from an overarching ecosystem play internally and get your leadership on board. I think the point of leaders not being on board yet is just insane. It's just clearly partnerships is here. We've arrived. Thank God for partnership leaders and folks like Crossbeam that put on Catalyst and Reveal that are putting out so much amazing content. We've arrived and we're here, and the leaders really need to pay attention to that, and they really need to allow the business to thrive in the way that it can with that.
Awesome.
And I think I may have just said what I have
think
there.
yeah.
I think, the last point I'll make, we're so over on time, so
I
I'll
know.
just keep talking.
Are you guys? Is this good? I mean, yeah.
The last point I'll make too is you've got to look at the revenue. I mean, I think, in our business, all of our businesses, revenue solves all problem at the end of the day. Now, what we're doing is going to get to revenue, but if you can show growth and expansion and net new business, you have to prioritize that, and leadership is going to pay attention to that. They have to. So I really focus on revenue when it comes to my partner business, and at the end of the day, that's what's really going to shine inside the business.
Awesome. That's it. Like Mike said, we're way over time, but hopefully this was helpful. I think we'll hang out here if there are any questions. If not, we'll be on the boats tonight. But thank you.